Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Flaps in the shot. What a goal! For you in all its magnificence.
Hello, everyone. This is a football festive feast, as Rich has named this episode. Stu here, hosting, just for your pleasure, of course. With me tonight is Ed, coming not from a nuclear bunker for a change. He looks quite cosy there. And Jafo breaking short his holiday to come and join us tonight. Or this afternoon for you.
Yeah, this afternoon for me.
So we'll come to you first, Jafo. Before we get into the serious things, how has Christmas in America been from someone who's experienced every other one in this country?
I mean, very different. I mean, I did like a Christmas Eve with one side of the family that I was seeing, and it was quite normal. And then the second side was very different. So it was like the food was incredibly different. You know, you got mac and cheese, and then you got rice, pasta salad. Not your normal affair, but very, very good. And I've got to say, I've had a great time so far. I do love it down here in the south. The hospitality of the people, just second to none. And I have a lot of time and a lot of respect for the people who are so kind and make you feel welcome, especially after seeing New York and how abrasive they are.
Yeah, it's just to put you are in South Carolina and not Brentford.
Yeah, South Carolina.
Portsmouth is the really, really good in Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's South Coast hospitality. What about you, Ed? How was your Christmas?
Yeah, quiet, not too bad. Not too bad. All Christmas Eve was fun, being at the game, and that was Christmas Eve, really. But yeah, not too bad. Quiet one.
Did you fully embrace the Christmas Eveness of it and get on the beers at 8 a.m?
No, not with an 8-year-old in tow. I can't be doing that. I have to be fully in control for him. So no.
Excellent work. I mean, that was a superb story that our mate Josh Lem put on Twitter, that the moon had to, the Weatherspoons had to shut the doors at 10:15 in the morning because it was full. I mean, that's what a country we are, as the kids say. Before we get onto them two games, though, the news that some people are cherishing, some people are a bit sad about. Don Fabio is leaving once again. This time to Rangers. Thoughts? Not so much of the fact that he was gone, because I think after Gary O'Neill's comments last night, fraudulent slip and all that, it was pretty obvious he wasn't going to go since he hasn't played for 2 months. But back to you, Ed. Thoughts on it? Him leaving and going to Rangers of all places?
Yeah, I think the leaving's not a surprise, is it? But maybe the destination is Scottish football, championship level at best. Maybe he'll get some goals down, up there, and I don't know, help his confidence. Gary O'Neill clearly doesn't rate him. The only thing for me with the deal is we don't have the obligation to buy, do we? I think from what I've read. So we could be onto a high into nothing, whether he does well or not. How much will you get for someone who scores a few goals in Scotland? I don't know. I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent to him as a player. I'm indifferent to him as the saga that rolls on. I don't think he's had particularly enough crack of the whip, but also we've not been in a situation where we've been able to give a teenager minutes either. So I just don't think it's worked out for all parties, has it?
No, but I mean, that is the one thing about it, that he's very similar age to Joe Gomez. And you look at the performance he put in last night with, again, less games to his name in professional football, and then you got Fabio Silva, who get different parts of the pitch, but still. Jeffo, you're the man of the world. How is Scottish football viewed elsewhere? Other than, I mean, obviously we've got a pretty low opinion of it, but from a kind of world football point of view, it's obviously not at the place it was in the 90s, is it?
I mean, outside of Celtic and even Rangers, just nobody even pays attention to it. I mean, it seems that the only place that could even look at Scottish football with any sort of love is probably Japan because of the contingency that they've got at Celtic. But really, it's just a terrible standard of league, and the fact that Fabio's having to drop himself to that level is quite telling. And I was thinking about it this morning. To be fair, when trying to understand if actually what Fabio has good about himself, and I think the main thing that he lacks as a footballer is quite an explosive nature. You look at talk about Joe Gomez, he can cover yards quite quickly, and with Fabio, how often have you seen him knock a ball past the man and run onto it, or be a player for speed? You just haven't. It's something that if he's not getting it now, he's never going to get it. I do worry about him that he's going to have one of these careers which peters out because he's not got a natural physicality or athleticism to accommodate what he doesn't have in terms of skills.
Yeah, and we could argue that we've seen when he's been with the Portugal under-21s, he looks a class above that, and yet he can never seem to make that jump to Premier League football. Is the lower reaches, the lower leagues of Europe his destination now? Because you are right, Ed, what you said. He's on a hiding to nothing, isn't he? Because if he does well in Scotland, it's Scotland, but we'll get a bit of coin back, maybe 15, 20 million. If he doesn't do well in Scotland, I don't think he'll fail there. He can't, can he? But if there was teams in Germany and Spain linked with him, and he wants to go there, I mean, the fact that they're paying all of his wages is a bonus, I suppose, and a small loan fee apparently reported elsewhere. So, do you see him coming back? I mean, obviously I don't, but just how much? Say that he does do well. How much do you think we're going to get from him, realistically?
I think with his age, we're looking, 10, 12, maybe 15 at a push. We're not going to get what we paid for him, basically, or anywhere near it, I'd imagine. So I think we'll be very lucky to recoup 15. We might be able to get 15 from a team in maybe Rangers or Celtic if they can reach to that. I don't know, but at best we're going to get between 10 to 15. But I don't know where from, because I think, like Jeffo says, I think maybe he's just a little bit too old school. He's an old school number 9, is he? That just needs chances, and there aren't many teams now that can afford to have a luxury striker. So I think that's his biggest issue.
Yeah, he doesn't run off the ball. He doesn't. I mean, we saw like the chances at Everton that he had, the one that was offside. I mean, that was the best he's ever looked, and it was off. Even that was offside. So yeah, you can say it's unfortunate, but again, he didn't read the line. And you think for us, obviously players can mature later, and you hold the Vardy thing, and he was 27 and all that stuff, and he's obviously still a very young man. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think more than anything else, what hasn't been confirmed at the time of recording is the fact that good old Sasha's on his way as well, which made me actually quite sad. The look on your face there, Jeffo, it was like someone's just run over your cat outside the window.
Yeah, to be fair, I like Sasha. I just think he's not the right man for this team. And it's an awful situation he found himself when he came here, and what happened against Southampton and that injury and everything that he's had to go through with moving his life and then having all that trauma. I thought he might be able to give us something this season, but it's been difficult for him because he's not the guy who fits in with what we're trying to do. You compare him, you can't even compare him, but to compare him to what Cunha does for the team, he couldn't do it. It's just not his possibility. It's not possible for him. But yeah, I'd be sad to see him go because he's such a likable guy, in and around the club, and he's a good footballer. You can't deny it. The goals that he scored, the 2 goals that he scored this season, he's took them well, and they've been at very crucial games, and they've got us points. So let's say if he does leave, then he goes with my love and hopes that I hope that he does well in his career because he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, Ed, that the little flare up at Luton probably didn't do his cause any favours?
Yeah, I think we've seen with how Barry O'Neill's dealt with Johnny that he doesn't sort of suffer fools gladly, does he, with these kinds of acts of dissent or breaking the harmony in the group, and that obviously doesn't go down well. I think the writing was on the wall when we talk about the Brentford game, the fact that he didn't come on when Cunha looked shot. So Cunha looked shot after 65 minutes of the Chelsea game and then played nearly all of last night as well. And the fact that at one point in the game yesterday, we needed the ball to stick up front. We didn't bring on our 6'7" striker, 6'8" striker, probably shows that Gary doesn't really have the faith in him either. And I think Defoe's hit the nail on the head perfectly. I think that he just doesn't fit the current system for Gary O'Neill, who wants this mobile central forward that isn't really a number 9, but isn't also really a false 9. And Sasha obviously can't play that role. And plan B doesn't seem to be lump it in the box very often. So there's not really a place for him in the squad, unfortunately. But it is sad. It's sad when he came and he played well in that first game and then got injured. And we all fell in love with him a little bit more after the documentary. And for him to go now, it's one of those ones where it's what could have been, I think, with him.
Yeah. But you did touch on it there. That, I mean, what you just described, not a 9 and not a 10, is Cunha. So if we are looking for this number 9, who's going to have to? Well, we don't know. Is there a job there that Sasha can't do? So does he have to be tall and physical and be able to play on the ball? Oh, it's who are we talking about here? Because I have got no clue whatsoever. I know we were linked with Shay Adams and whatever, and that's a bit underwhelming. But other than that, you think of the players that could be available, it's going to be someone random, isn't it? Especially Defoe and your spreadsheets of thousands. That's not Football Manager at all. Who, when he's talking about traditional number 9, considering what we have already, and he's saying that we don't have this type of player, pull someone off the top of your head. Go on, someone obscure that we might know, we might not know, because I've got no idea who he means.
I'm thinking first name that came to my head is Gerard Moreno. That's it. So somebody who can take chances, gets in between the posts, and he's there to is fox in the box. The way that Fabio should be, but somebody who's got that little bit more. So as you've seen with what Cunha does, can carry the ball, has a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more physicality. So Fabio was oh so close to being that number 9 that he really, really wanted, but he just doesn't have the attributes, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You mentioned it, so we'll touch on it quickly because it was 4 days ago at this point. Christmas Eve, the whole farce of it all, and we spoke about it briefly. I mean, in the end, I enjoyed it for what it was. As a novelty. I'm thankful that it's not happening again next year, but you taking you somewhere you had, and how did you find the build-up? Because it seemed very strange to me, the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a bit flat, wasn't it? It was a bit. It felt like people were there out of duty. So we're not season ticket holders. We are Johnny come lately's come to games we can get to, and it didn't feel like the guys, it's mostly guys around us, were that. There was a lot of guys that were obviously seasoned veterans that smelt of armpits and booze, as you should do at football. But like it was half cocked a little bit. I think it was a little bit like we're all going through the motions to start off with. They even messed up Hio Silverline, didn't they, at the end? And he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for the kickoff. So that was sort of indicative, I think, of the first 20 minutes. It felt like we hadn't woken up, and it felt like the crowd hadn't woken up, and it felt like it was Christmas Day rather than Christmas Eve. We were all just sort of ready to get settling into the mac and cheese and the turkey, and not really there for a game of football. And yeah, it seemed flat. I don't know if you thought that, Stu, when you were there.
Yeah, it was. I think that you are right. A sense of duty more than a sense of wonder, and it sums it up perfectly, I think. And to be fair, thankfully for us, it looked like Raheem Sterling was. Hopefully, it was Christmas Day as well. The amount of gifts that he was giving us, because I'm not going to bash Sterling. I like Sterling more than most people do, but he had a stinker, thankfully. But for all the criticism that Dan Bentley had, Jose Sarr back in, and he's pulling off that save, that 1-on-1, and it was it. You spread yourself, you open yourself up to nutmegs and stuff, but I thought it was a massively underrated save that no one's talked about. And
it was. Yeah, find your fun.
You got the points, and that's what you can say. What you say about Jose Sarr, he always puts his body on the line. He does what he thinks is right. He's a modern day goalkeeper, and when it comes off, he gets what's required, and that's he stops goals and that's the thing with him. You look at him, he gets us extra points. In that first season he was here, he got us a plus of 10 points extra. He'll do it again this season because he's a good goalkeeper, despite his flaws and his somewhat insanity in certain moments. He's still a very, very good goalkeeper. And you look back now against Rui Patricio, who's a world-class goalkeeper. I say apparently. He was at the end of his career, really, when he was here, even though he's at Roma now. He's a step up in the way that he wants to play, and it allows us to play and have that 11th outfield player. And people forget that is where we were with Rui. We had a guy who didn't want to come and clutch the ball, didn't want to punch it. He stayed on his line, and now we've got Jose Sarr comes flying out. He wants to play. He wants to use his feet. He wants to pass the ball. He's a good goalkeeper. And if he does go in January or at the end of the season, it'll be a hard replacement because Dan Bentley ain't that.
Yeah, and I've said before, if it happened, I'd want Kelleher, and that is for the similar kind of reason, similar kind of keeper, because we saw what we were like with Rui. He was great, he was superb, but you had to play a certain way because he wouldn't play with his feet, and he wouldn't come and catch anything. So you had to play deep to counteract that. But there was a couple of times like when he did flap again. I think it looked more rusty to me than anything else, having a week off for the injury. That he came for the one that was cleared off the line by Totti, but then he'd come and claim others that were on the penalty spot perfectly well. It was just a crazy but calm game, wasn't it, Ed? It's really hard to describe.
Yeah, it was a very strange game because I felt like if Chelsea were any good, we would have been blown out of the water in that first sort of 15, 20 minutes when the Chelsea fans were swinging their hats around. But it was a strange game. I think Jose Sarr epitomised it, didn't he? Because he looked competent whilst also every now and again giving you a heart in the mouth moment. And that's what it felt like the whole game was. A little bit of neither of these teams really want to be there. And it was who's going to take their chances. It's what it felt like on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so about chances taken, we've got the man of the moment again, Mario Lemina. I mean, I thought without his goal, I thought he was absolutely incredible. And he's gone from cult status, when we've got the graphic there for audio people, shots 3, goals 1, tackles 6, interceptions 4, clearances 2. He's gone from cult hero to borderline legend in a year. Is it fair to say, or is that a bit too early?
A little early, I think. But I don't know whether it was said in a WhatsApp group or on Twitter, but you put Mario Lemina in that 2018-19 side instead of Romain Says. We might have done a little bit more. We might have done a little bit more, and we might have gone further in competitions because he is a baller and he's a warrior. He gives everything on that football pitch, and he does it in style as well. And the Chelsea game really epitomised it. The way he used his body and strength to come away with the ball in situations, turn him, he made it look easy. He was the best game he's probably played in a Wolves shirt at Chelsea, and he didn't do too bad against Brentford either. But the Chelsea game, a class above. Real warrior's instincts, led on the pitch. He was a true leader without that armband. He don't need it. You don't need to put anything on him to get him to want to play for you. He's a fantastic footballer.
Yeah, definite cult hero status, and the price as well, the price tag we got him for when we got him, just all adds to it. I think it's the fact that we managed to get him for next to nothing. And I think Defoe's just set it up perfectly there. He's the heartbeat of the team, but he's also sort of everything in between as well. He's got the brains as well. He's not just tough tackling. He's not just sort of an old-fashioned defensive midfielder that puts his foot in where other people don't want to. He spreads the play. He moves it really easy, and he always wants the ball, and he's never shied away. Never shied away.
Yeah, I think his passing is something that, I mean, I think I underrated a bit as well when he came in, because you think of him what he was like at Southampton and Fulham, and he was just a bit of a battering ram and a kind of get the ball back, knock it to someone more competent than you kind of midfielder, and he's not that at all. He can do it all. I mean, maybe if, like Jafel said, I mean, the story was there when we signed him a year ago, wasn't it, that we'd tracked him for 4 years. If we'd got him 4 years ago, would he have been this good? Probably not, because I'd never seen him like this before, and he's probably in the form of his life. So, I mean, whereas Jose sort of epitomised that game, I think saying Mario Lemina was the standout player against Chelsea at home is something of, I said dreams are made of. It's some kind of fever dream, if that you go back a couple of years. No one in a million years would have thought this. But the man next to him, obviously, we'll talk about him in the Brentford game, but I think João Gomez was his ability to just sit there and let Lemina do it. I think he's massively underrated as well. And it's maybe last night was the first time he's actually got praise for it. But I thought against Chelsea he was very good as well.
Yeah, he was busy without sort of being reckless or headless chicken. I think it's an unkind phrase, but at times he can sort of take that bulldog mentality that we've kind of attributed him to his heart, I think, and he will harry around when he doesn't need to. But as the weeks go on, he seems to be a little bit smarter about when he goes and when he doesn't. And in this new system, he's sitting a little bit more to allow Lemina to do like he did against Chelsea, to do like he did against Spurs earlier on, and obviously last night as well. It seems to be able to bring the best out of both of them.
Yeah. I think you're right, mate, to be honest. I think the key word is discipline with him, and I think that's the more he plays in the Premier League, the more he plays around experienced players, because you remember this kid barely played anything really in terms of years in Brazil, and now he's coming and playing in Premier League games. He's going to learn, and that, as soon as he gets that discipline, and like you just said, he combines that with his nature of being tenacious and wanting to get the ball and wanting to be that guy who stops everything, stop. And you see the difference between where he is in terms of tackles and everyone else on that pitch last night. It's incredible. He is going to be a wonderful footballer if he keeps up this development, because to have what he has at this age for a defensive midfielder, you don't see it very often, and it's wonderful that he plays in our goal, because he's a little gem, and that diamond in the rough is starting to shine.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there, how much he loves it, and I don't know if it came across on the broadcast, because I ain't seen it back yet, but he physically punched the air after one of the tackles on Christmas Eve. I've never seen that before. You see it from keepers with penalty saves and stuff like that. But for a midfielder making a tackle and then cheering like he scored a goal, I thought it was just wonderful to see. And the fact that both of them are so committed to the cause, it's just, you just love to see it after the shit that we've had for the last 3 years. It's just wonderful. Yeah. But talking about shit from the last 3 years, Matt Doherty came on. No, harsh. But when he came on, and he was like, well, is he just putting him on for the sake of it because of his height and because we might need a bit of an out ball with dead legs and stuff? But to play him in midfield and for him to pop up there again, like he has so many times on Palace away for us about 3-4 years ago, that finish was sublime, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a finish that, you'd expect from a top of the league, top of the range striker. You really would. The way he opened his body up, I don't think it's been spoken about, maybe because it's on Christmas Eve and it got buried in and amongst all the stories. But yeah, it's a wonderful finish. And I was in the North Bank and we were right behind it, and you saw him open his body up, and it's just like, well, that's in. that's in, and he's managed to find the gap. And it's just that it's an absolute wonderful finish from someone who's supposed to be a right back.
Yeah.
That'll be why Fabio's off to Rangers and Sasha's leaving. He got Doherty back. He's going to take the number 9 from January. But yeah, with all semantics aside, it's a good finish. It's a really good goal.
When you say that, but Matt Doherty is an emergency striker. He's clearly better than Fabio Silva in the Premier League. And you've just summed it up. His composure in front of goal. Yeah, he's older, a lot older. But regardless of being a right back at all, he has stepped up a lot of times for us in that position to start home, and he's got a knack of doing it. I mean, compared it to Semedo, who's got 2 goals in 3 years or something like that. I mean, so there's another reason for people to hate him, obviously. But
yeah,
I thought he was great as well. And I thought before we get on to Brentford, when you look at, we'll come on to Everton later. There was a stat that Mikey Burrow said in their show on the official club podcast that in that second half against Chelsea, we had 48 completed passes in the second half.
Yeah, it felt like it, didn't it?
Compared to Chelsea's 300 odd. But did you ever feel like they were going to do anything with it? Because I didn't.
No, they were awful. Other than Sterling sort of making himself a nuisance on the left, they were. Well, they jeered Jackson being taken off themselves, didn't they? There was nothing up front. The defence Thiago Silva looked his age in that game, and the midfield, Conor Gallagher is just someone who runs around a lot. And I couldn't tell you who else played in midfield. They had a number 16, who I think is a relatively new signing. That there was you couldn't believe, and I kept saying this to my little boy, to Jacob, you couldn't believe that £1 billion had been spent on that squad.
Yeah.
You really couldn't. I really wanted to think of a chant that £1 billion and you're losing to us. We needed something like that to be thrown around, because it was crazy how bad they were considering the investment they've got.
Well, yeah. And it shows that just throwing money at it doesn't work, as we know from the 90s. You mentioned Nicholas Jackson now. I mean, I was trying to rack my brain thinking, have I seen a worst striking performance like that? And I did mention Ricky Otto. But it's on a par with that because it was atrocious, wasn't it? I mean, the couple that he had that were almost sitters, the one especially where he just fell over, you're thinking he was one of them, a Make-A-Wish participant or something like that, because, again, you talk about the money. I think that's what comes back to January as well. It doesn't matter. We might have 20 million to spend, maybe. We don't have to spend it, as we've seen with Lamina, like we've all just said. What, 9 million quid? Best player on the pitch? People are out there. I mean, in the comments, someone mentioned Antonio as being the ideal fit, and that's probably a good shout. But at his age, we're going to be paying 10, 11, 12 million, something like that at best. I'd rather wait till the summer, to be honest.
Yeah.
But before we get on to Brentford, I think when I find the buttons, we'll just have a quick break for adverts, or 7 seconds for people. For you 32 people watching live. So we'll be back in a sec and we'll talk about Brentford, preview Everton and some other stuff. See you in a bit. Welcome back. Did you have this game down as 0-0 last night?
Yeah, I was. I'm always a bit cautious when it comes to Brentford, because they seem to be a bit of a bogey team for us, and Thomas Frank is always quite. The word that I would pick for a Thomas Frank side when it comes to Wolves is organised. Mm-hmm. And ironically, we'll talk about it in a minute, but that's what they were. And to be fair, I've never asked the other half for a score prediction last night, but she said 4-0, and by God, she was. And I looked at her, I went, "You don't know Wolves," and it was like, by the end of the night, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've never watched the Wolves game.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, that's their biggest ever defeat at home in the Premier League, and we inflicted it on them after 14. Was it 14 games? Obviously, you didn't see the Amazon Prime broadcast here, Jafar, but we had Manish presenting it, and he said to Gary O'Neill before, and a guy from Beckham can't be in charge of a team that loses 14 times in London or something like that beforehand. And obviously, he wasn't in charge for that long, but to have a losing streak going back that far is pretty ridiculous, even for us. Especially considering we used to do okay down there under Nuno, but you are right, and the fact that we had the whole thing with David Raya and the glove at Molineux a few years ago and all that kind of stuff. There's always been a bit of nonsense between us. What did you think before the game, Jafo? And then Ed, and then obviously Santi starting as well in place of the crocked Craig Dawson.
So before the game, I was genuinely relatively confident. I thought that when you look at Brentford and you take away the players that weren't in that team yesterday for them, so Tony, Brian Mbuemo, Rico Henry, they had that player that just came back. They looked decidedly Championship. And I thought that plus the fact that we'd played only 2 days before and they'd had that 10-day rest or rust, depending on what you believe in. I thought it was going to be quite an even match, but I was relatively confident. I was thinking it was going to be 1-0 maybe, and I just didn't see them being a threat up front. Santi came in, and I think just to touch on him, I think he was absolutely solid. I don't think he did anything exceptional, but I also don't think he did anything wrong. I know the ball went over his head for the goal, but what's he supposed to do? Sometimes you just have good interchange play. I don't know what else he could have done in that situation, and I think there's a few murmurs that he could have been better, or Santi's not the one. He was perfectly serviceable against Chelsea and perfectly serviceable last night. I just don't think we need to overanalyze a centre back. Sometimes he's there to do what he did yesterday, which is block shots, get in the way, and move the ball on. That's all we ask of Totti. That's all we ask of Dawson. And we've got the futsal legend to spray the ball out if we need to. So he was perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Nothing to write home about either way.
I think out of the three at the back, I think Totti had a bit more of a trying night. I mean, the amount of times they went down the outside of him and he got turned, and when he got done for that free kick on the edge of the box as well, which was just a bit of naivety. And you think, well, okay, no one's saying anything about Totti because he's obviously Totti and he's cool. But Santi Bueno seems to be, we have to have, we win 4-1 away for the first time in ages. We have to have someone to hate. Someone has to get it. And obviously, because Semedo played really well as well in the first half, especially. And I think, no, we can't give it Semedo because we look like idiots this week. But there's always someone, isn't there? And again, I don't understand. And obviously, I was there at Ipswich when he was absolutely atrocious. But so was everyone else. So, and other than Bentley, everyone's redeemed themselves. And they've obviously shown that was a blip. He hasn't, unfortunately. But we'll go on. What did you think about it, Jafar? Bueno, obviously, because he's come in with this bit of a reputation, and Price has mentioned it on Twitter that he's kicking himself for obviously leaving at the time the leaders of La Liga, and he's sitting on the bench for us, and he is in a different country, and it's a different language and all that kind of stuff. And I know Gully mentioned it as well, that it's hard to integrate as quickly as he has, getting up to speed when he hasn't really played much football either. But to come in and, like I said, the performance against Chelsea when he was required, cold off the bench as well, and then to come in yesterday, I thought he was great.
Yeah, less than 200 minutes in a top 5 team in the world. Replacing probably one of the most experienced defenders in the league, who comes at a 7 out of 10 level every week. I have no issues with Bueno at all. And I don't. People who are complaining about the goal, either never played any football or are just complete morons, to be honest, because the pass to the start was incredible. And the finish to take it as early as he did, he's probably Brentford's best player. And goal was a fantastic goal. I'm literally no complaints for Santi because, as you just said, he's to a new league. He's under pressure to adapt to it quickly. He's to get used to physicality, because that's the one thing that I always Premier League is everyone has to get fitter, everyone has to get stronger. And with any player, very rarely does a player come in and hit the ground running. Who's the only one is Erling Haaland, who's an absolute demon of a monster. Wise, there's nobody in that league probably as strong or as fast when they're running with the ball at full pelt. So give the guy a little bit of due. He's barely played any minutes, and he pulled out against I know they're not performing as well as they should be, but against a side like Chelsea and a very, very good, very, very good footballer, and against Brentford as well. In Stephen Nkunku, Christian Nkunku, who scored for them. He's a very, very good footballer, and you see he played against for Chelsea today, and Jan Visser as well. He's playing against top players in this league, and he's going to only grow, and he just needs time and support, and people just need to get off the back and just get a reality check, to be honest.
Yeah, very well said. And I mean, we'll talk on to about other centre-back performances in our games shortly, but I mean, what we didn't mention about Super Mario Lemina, in his career, he scored 12 goals in 322 games. He's now got 4 in his last 9 for Wolves. And that header, again, where's this come from? Like we said earlier, that he's in the form of his life, but I can't remember a time where you've seen someone just develop a new skill and then be excellent at it from the off.
Yeah, I think you try and argue that football's not FIFA, the computer game, and Defoe was right there to say that you can't just plug and play from, you sign someone from nowhere, and just because they're 77 rated on FIFA, they'll be perfectly fine in real life. But it is like we've had a power up with Mario Lemina, and it's from his neck. I don't quite know where we've got it from, but I'm not complaining. You have players that go through these rich veins of form, or just he's maybe allowed to be a little bit freer in this system. Maybe he's not being asked to be sort of the destroyer anymore, and maybe he's always had this skill, but he's never been, like when Tony Pulis found out that Rory Delap could throw the ball 90 yards without trying, and you go, oh, we'll just use that now. Maybe Mario Lemina's always been a bit of a fox in the box, and he's never been given the chance.
Yeah, that's a good point about Rory Delap, actually. It's always been there. You just never know. We're talking about excellent footballers like Nkunku. As Matt Bradley said, Sarabia deserves a bit of love for the assist. Most talented footballer in the squad, obviously, Pablo Sarabia. Now he's got a bit of fitness. I mean, this is not just to wind Dan up, because he knows he's wrong here. He might have been right about someone else, but not about Pablo. I thought he's been superb, deputising for Neto, especially the last couple of weeks, where he seems to have found a bit of fitness about him. Yet he's still really, really lightweight to be playing in this league. But you can't defend that ball, can you?
That's that corridor of uncertainty, as people love to say. It was brilliant. He's growing. It's difficult, and I think he's still very much a horses for courses footballer. And he's one where I think he will do better in games where we dominate than ones where we have to be on the back foot. I think we see more from him in those games. But as you say, deputising for Neto, you can't fault him. He's got assists, and he's been crucial in build-up play. So it's good that he's coming and he's learnt. And you got to remember, he's only been here less than 12 months. He's coming up on his 1 year anniversary as being part of the club in January. So you've got to be realistic with these things. And he's one who's played. He didn't have to be the fittest. He didn't have to be the strongest at PSG. Who does? Because you've got Neymar and when he was there, and Mbappe, and all these other footballers who do the work for you. So why do you need to push yourself? And now you come to a team who've, were fighting to stay in the league at the start of the season and the back end of last season. He's got to push. He's got to be fitter. He's got to be stronger. He's got to be more on it. And if he is doing it, and it looks like he is, and he's putting the work in, then good on him, because he'll prove people wrong, and he'll use the footballing ability that he has got in his head to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's a little slow on the release of the ball. I embarrassed my son by shouting very loudly at one point when we had a break on, and he decided to do a 4 or 5 point turn when he didn't need to just release the ball. Thankfully, I didn't swear and would have got told off even more. But I think that will come. He's come from a league where, with all due respect, he probably only plays 2 or 3 games in the league a year that he'll need to worry about. And he's come to a league now where we've seen teams like ourselves beating Man City, Aston Villa beating Man City and Everton last night, giving them a good, a good run for their money to start off with. We have teams that can beat any team, and they're always up for it in this league. And that's going to be a mentality change for players like Sarabia, who are used to being luxury players, that are used to being able to take 2 or 3 touches when you can't in the Premier League. And it will come. And that assist is, again, when he doesn't have any time to think about it, it's just on his left foot, and he just whips it in, and it's a beautiful ball that it couldn't have been taken by the keeper. It's perfectly placed.
Yeah, very well said. But being an away game and being in London, who else thought this is going to be backs to the wall now? We're going to ride the title away for about 10-15 minutes, just suck up a bit of pressure, and then wait for them to tire themselves out and then hit them again. Because that's what I thought. But someone else had other ideas, didn't they? Good old Nathan Collins.
God bless him.
I mean, we all knew that he had this kind of weirdness in him. And that's kind of why he was sold as well. For that we made a bit of money on him with the mistakes that he put in, and his kung fu kick against Grealish aside, he really, you think, well, yeah, he's still relatively young. He's got to get this stuff out of his system, but it looked like he had. To me, I can't remember too many of these kind of incidents, but the fact that that literally 60 seconds later and he's playing that pass, 80 seconds later he's playing that pass back to the keeper. With, again, fair play to Hwang for anticipating it, but what is he doing, Jafar? What is he doing?
I can't put it into words, to be honest, but I mean, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with it. He's playing against his old club where he'd not performed, and I feel like he'd just come back from injury, or he hadn't been playing because Ben Mee was in the side and he was suspended last night. So he's got that little bit of rust, and it's probably a lot of pressure on him to try and perform after leaving Wolves and not really being it last season. But the first one. It's worse. It's worse than the second one. But the first one is just horrendous. And it reminds me a little bit of Hwang's goal against Arsenal from last season, where he was on his toes, he anticipated it and took it well. But yeah, for all that Collins did wrong, Channy had a lot to do, and well done Hwang for being one who took last season and his faults and his foibles and really running it with it this year. So I'm enjoying the rebirth of Hwang.
The Hwang rebirth. But no, that's not going to be the title. No. But there's someone put a thing. There was another infographic about Hwang on Twitter earlier, as there is every week. Just about how many goals he's got now compared to his previous 2 seasons, and it's just insane. This is his numbers altogether. He looks like it's almost akin to what Raul was when he came here for me, where no one really expected anything of him. His numbers weren't great, and then he came here and he's a different player altogether. And that's what Hwang seems to be. He looks like he doesn't even look like the player that we thought he'd be when he signed. He's something else altogether this season.
Yeah, he's basically playing that centre forward role when Cunha goes on his merry little dances. Hwang just sort of stays around in the middle of the park and stays in between those posts and makes himself a nuisance. And he's a player that you kind of, I feel like I don't want him to have the ball that much. Don't give him any time to think. Don't really involve him in the build-up, because we've seen he can be a bit lax with clearances and things. You don't really want him going backwards. Just keep him up there, and he knows how to finish. I mean, both of his goals were top class for different reasons. The first goal is a poacher sort of getting on the back of a mistake, and the next goal is just a wonderful bit of skill that he looked so comfortable.
Yeah. Before we get to that, 103 seconds later after the first goal, you mentioned it earlier, Ed. People mentioned having to go at Santi for it. I thought it was just a class finish. I don't think he could have
It's
done
a good move.
anything with that whatsoever. Prime Video timed it at 42 seconds of ball in play time for them 3 goals, which has got to be some kind of mental record. I can't remember 3 goals going in that quicker time. It was 3 minutes in real time, but even that is a bit silly. I don't know about you, Jafar, that it seems like, even for how mental that game was, I didn't expect that at all.
No, I mean, the only thing I can think of it being similar to is when I think it was Brighton, where we conceded 2 goals in like a minute at home a couple of seasons ago. It just doesn't happen. You don't get moments like this in football games, but the fact that it happened with Wolves and it happened in a positive way, the stars have aligned, and it's a Christmas miracle. But it's good. I think that the work that Gary O'Neill's doing, it shouldn't be underestimated, and to have an away win. Traditionally, we've struggled with away games a little bit more than at Molineux. To have that come after the Chelsea game and to us to get our first back-to-back wins of the season is amazing at this point in the season with so many games so close together.
Yeah, and I think for us to not completely capitulate as well after going 2 up and then being pegged back pretty much straight away. We've seen that so many times where my Brighton at home, for instance, at the start of the season, where 3 goals in quick succession and just killed the game off. You think, well, how is the team that we put out last night? The mental strength then compared to what we had earlier in the season already it's superb. And the fact that I got old friend Calamity Collins again, who upfield, and then Emily's good pal playing Huang on side. But you mentioned it. There's almost no words to say. It's almost, I mean, it reminded me of Gaza Euro 96 against Scotland, for how he took it down. Just superb, isn't he?
Yeah, it's the calmness of it all. The finish against Burnley was that calm as well, wasn't it? Where he just waits and picks his spot. Like, he does the hard bit. He flicks over the defender's head, like that's nothing. And then he doesn't then just lash at it. He never once looks at the goal. He knows where the goal is. He has a sense of where the keeper is. He just keeps his eye on the ball and he just pops it in, but only when he's ready. He's waiting until he's ready to do it. It's crazy. It's crazy the calmness that man seems to have in front of goal, considering where we were with him. Like you talked about, the redemption arc with him is real.
But then, go on, Jafar.
All I was going to say is I watched it I was on Peacock. I watched it, and the commentator said a similar sort of thing. He took that goal like a guy who's been in goal scoring form, and you see it, and I think that comes with it, and that calmness comes with scoring goals, and that's what he needed. He needed that little bit of confidence in himself and to push himself to achieve what he can, because he's a good footballer, and to do what he's doing and to score goals in the manner that he's scoring them, it's nice, because it's something that we as a club have missed for a long period of time. Ever since the Raul incident against Arsenal, we haven't had that. So it's to have that now and to have goals and assists through a team is good. It shouldn't be underestimated.
But of course, this being Wolves, he then gets clattered, and you think, oh, his back's broken. He's now going to be disabled for life. Thankfully, apparently it was just a back spasm, and he didn't look too uncomfortable sitting in the stand in the second half. But you do kind of fear after what you just mentioned, you fell with the Raul thing. You do kind of fear the worst. And we had it with Neto, who's trying to come on later on, but didn't. But B Wolves, we can't have nice things. And I don't know about you, and obviously we're going to miss him in January anyway. But thankfully he was back up and sitting, because I did think he was a little bit of play acting at first. I don't know about you, Ed, but because he is known for it as well.
Well, that's what I thought. I just thought it was a lie that had gone on too long. He was on the floor. He was on the floor trying to stop the game, and then the game carried on, and then the game carried on, and he's gone, I'm too deep into this now. This needs to be serious enough to take me off, because I can't just get up and walk now. It's almost 10 o'clock at night, and we haven't finished the first half yet. So I genuinely thought that it was sort of a play acting that then, yeah, when you got too far deep in, like some kind of sitcom where the husband lies to his wife, and then it spirals into oh crap, this is what the whole episode's going to be about. This is a Lee Max sketch or something. So that's what I felt. I think he'd be perfectly fine for Everton.
Yeah, hopefully. We get fingers crossed. Obviously, we come in half time and we think, this is obviously not job done, because this is Wolves, and I kind of expected that out of the blocks attack from Brentford. What I didn't expect, though, was that defensive masterclass, Jafo, because I know people will moan, people will say, his back's to the wall and you just oofing the ball away. But the shape, the commitment to the block and the tackle, a bit over the top in Kilman's case for that one. But have we looked as good defensively as we did in that second half all season? Because I can't think we have.
No, I can't think of any games off the top of my head. And I think I used the word earlier, and I'll use it again, discipline. And I think you see it now with what Gary O'Neill wants to do, and the way that he's coaching the sides, that he wants them to be disciplined, and he wants them to be calm and relaxed in these key moments, to not give up chances. And I think you said it then quite well, that we didn't really give up any chances. And if you look back on that second half, is how many clear goal-scoring opportunities did Brentford have? They just didn't. And that's epitomised everything good that Mario Lemina, João Gomez, Totti, Santi fucking Bueno. And just for those people who don't like him. And Max Kilman, did well. And the fullbacks who were involved as well. It's tantamount to everything that they've done well this season, and the fact that they can have injuries and people come in and we still be that solid and we could still dig out, because that first 15, 20 minutes of that second half, previous Wolves sides would have capitulated. Nuno's last season, Bruno Lage's sides, even Lopetegui sides definitely would have capitulated, and we would have lost that game in that first 20 minutes of the second half. We would have done. So what Gary's doing and the ethos that he's bringing, and the slight changes and difference to what we've seen since we've been back in the Premier League, is quite refreshing, because we are a different side and we are stronger and more resilient than ever.
Yeah. And I think, I mentioned that Brighton game. We've seen it in this team itself, the mental improvement in things like that. And there was a comment on Twitter from Davey Hop. Is it time Stu finally takes back the dictator comment from the start of the season about Gary O'Neill? No, because my point was that he was trying to drill them into something they couldn't do, which now he has changed and admitted that some of them can't do. And we've already said that we were harsh on him. Well, I particularly was. But again, when you see a fall off like that straight away with a new manager, you think he very rarely turns around. We saw last night, for me in particular, the first time where they got it. They understood exactly what he wanted them to do. And we've had wins and we've had things like the Spurs game and the mentalness of all that stuff and the last minute winners. That performance yesterday was the first Gary O'Neill type performance for me that I thought, every single member of that squad got it. Even when Doherty came on for Semedo and Hugo Bueno came on for Nuri. Again, like under Nuno, where players just came in and slotted into the shape, and it worked. I thought he was superb last night.
Yeah, I think it was a doggy performance, wasn't it? Brentford had to come out at the start of the second half. That was their time to sort of huff and puff, wasn't it? And yeah, maybe the Man City game is probably the only time we were maybe as resolute as that. Other than Keane Lewis Potter down the left. At times, especially when Doherty came on, he had a little bit of joy. But I can only think of that one dangerous cross where sort of Kilman did enough to knock it out the 6-yard box. But I think Jaffa was right there. Didn't really create anything of any note, and it definitely plug and play. Whoever came in knew the assignment.
Yeah, and so about knowing the assignment. One person knew the assignment again, didn't they? I mean, it's beyond belief. I mean, we've had a go at Jean written a better guide on here a few weeks ago, and for the last few weeks really, because he looked promising before his suspension. Admittedly, that was 1 game, 1.5 games, but I thought the composure last night from the Bella Guardian of the Galaxy was superb. I know it's hard to miss. Would Fabio have scored that, Jaffa?
Well, I'm not going to bash Fabio anymore. There's no need. It's like taking candy from a baby or beating a dead horse. It's not fun. But the finish, fantastic. It's the first time slid it in the bottom corner. It was confidence, and for a player who really hasn't been playing that well for Wolves since the Lockyer incident against Luton, he looked a lot more composed, a lot better. And I think we've mentioned it a few times during this episode. I think it's about being patient with these players. Mm-hmm. He's one who's come from the same league as Sarabia, in essentially a farmers' league, and he's now got to be this better player, and he's got to play with better standards of player and against better standards of players every week. And the fact that he's improving, and we saw a little bit more of what we expected from Bellegarde yesterday in the way that he wants to play, is refreshing, because that's what we need. We need him to be amongst the goals and assists, and that's what I want to see from him going forward. Is now consistency, and that's the key word for Bellegarde and his future now at the club, is to be consistent in goal scoring, actions, so goals, assists, or being involved in build up, and that's what he needs to do. But the goal last night, fantastic, well done.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about composure as well there. I mean, minutes earlier, we had the Cunha chance that just hit the post. If that had gone in, he could have still brought him on, and Colin could have still done that. It could have been 5, but it's one of them. And I think I didn't realize Bellegarde was that quick. It's like, because he's built like the way he is, you don't kind of expect it from him because he's quite squatty and he's quite compact. But yeah, fair play to him. He looked like someone who knew what they were supposed to be doing, and they've took everything on board, as did Tommy Doyle. Again, never get to mention never, but I thought that was probably his better performance so far.
Yeah, was it? He had one good game, didn't he, when he came on at half time? I can't remember who that was against. Was that when he played really well? But again, he's a tidy footballer that will grow into this league and will grow into this team. And he's a snip at 4 million, isn't he? That's a brilliant squad player for the price we're going to pay for him. Is exactly what we need. He's slightly different to Lemina and Gomez. He's slightly more forward thinking in terms of his passing. His passing range is slightly better, but not maybe as physical. And I think Bellegarde's finish is what Sterling couldn't do at the weekend, isn't it? I think that's the difference, isn't it? And it's that confidence and the ability to take the chance. And goals, I mean, we've seen what it's done for Hwang. Goals completely change players' careers, don't they? So let's hope he kicks on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm guessing that Jaffel's going to go for Santi because just for the lols. But and I know you mentioned it earlier, Ed. But for me, there was only one man in the match in that game, and I know Julie gave him a 6 for some reason, but the heart of the bulldog himself, João Gomez, was immense, and I wish that his heat map was in here, but you can go and find that on Twitter or X or whatever. It looked like a cheese pizza. How much ground he covered, because he was absolutely everywhere. And like you said earlier against Chelsea, he's not a headless chicken. He puts in the tackles. He knows where to be. He's a pain in the arse, and he's great at it.
Yeah, and he loves it as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he absolutely loves it. He doesn't necessarily want the limelight for scoring goals or goal line clearances. He just wants to be a tidy footballer that wins the ball and gives it to the better players. He's perfect foil for any kind of midfielder that you could want. Imagine him next to Neves and allowing Neves to spray the ball around a bit more. If we wanted to go that way with a different centre midfielder, but him and Lamina just dovetail brilliantly. And last night was definitely his best performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do beautiful. But the only other one, Channy, just extra love for Channy as always. Continue the rebirth. I know it's going to be impossible to keep that sort of form up, but if he keeps adding goals, then we won't need to spend money on a striker. So go on, lad, keep going.
Is it 10 goals in 11 shots on target or something mental like that?
Yep. Yeah, it's insane. You got it exactly right. Yeah, 10 in 11. But to keep that up and to do that it's an impossibility. It will stop at some point. But to have what is now essentially a guy who knows when to shoot and shoots at the right point and the right time is what he needed. He needed a little bit of coaching, a little bit of teaching him how to be a little bit calmer, because he originally, after he got injured when he first came here and came back, he just looked like a club-footed lunatic who just couldn't control the football and just running around the pitch all game. Didn't know what he was doing. But now he looks like he's been coached, and the guys who are there, Gary O'Neill and Sean Derry, they must be doing a good job with him, because we're seeing these players improve, and we're seeing these players go up to a new level. Not everyone, but the players who could do it and who needed to do it have done it, and these players are pushing themselves every week to improve and get better, and that's what football management and coaching should be about. And these guys who are here now, it's a refreshing place to be, and it's a refreshing situation to be in.
Yeah, very well said. I think when you look at the incident where Juan couldn't control the ball and everyone was laughing at him, and that's not even that long ago. And yet, well, we've mentioned on previous episodes where the difference could be put down to the fact that he can speak English now and he's integrated in the squad and everyone loves him. You mix that with good coaching that Lopetegui didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I was probably that man's biggest fan on here. And for every week that goes by, his comments about the squad make him look like a moron. So there's a reason. There's a reason he still hasn't got a job. He's doing it to himself, isn't he? But we don't need to talk about him. Gully's not here, so we can't wind him up. The big question, though, the appearance of my lord himself on Saturday, and to get back-to-back wins for the first time this season, I didn't expect. I mean, I think we're on course for what I kind of predicted. But we have had mentions of him, his lordship, in here. From the milkman here for the audio people. Stu must say you were right about Dyche. Top manager would have done well here. Of course he would. He's doing a brilliant job. And I know it turned into a bit of a farce with my whole loving with him. But you can't argue against the job he's doing there. He's take that points deduction away from him and look where they'd be.
Yeah, he's galvanised the team, hasn't he? He's a backs to the wall kind of manager. And I think that's massively galvanised them, hasn't it? I don't think anyone saw them going down, even with the points deduction with the teams that are in the league, and teams like Palace and Forest at times looking like they can free fall at any given moment, and obviously Brentford now with all their players missing will be in and amongst it as well. But I think Sean Dyche has done a fantastic job, because those teams. Well, I mean, obviously every team in the Premier League's got something to play for, but right now Burnley are in dire straits. Chelsea, we saw how bad they were and how much the money they've spent. Newcastle are now out of the Champions League. They're beating all of those, and it was a difficult game for Tottenham that they scraped through, and they really pushed Man City last night until the end. And if Dominic Calvert-Lewin puts that chance away last night and makes it 2-1 to Everton, who knows what kind of form they'd be in. They'd have 3 more points, or at least 1 more point maybe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it'll be a tougher game than people realise, or it'll be a tougher game than people want to admit it's going to be. And we don't have a great record against them at home. I know we've kind of Goodison is ours over the last 3-4 years, but at home against them, we had when we 2 draws, and there's the 1-1 from last year and the 2-2 when we got promoted. Been middle in the middle, but it's although she had our number with Burnley, and it's kind of like this is the kind of game where we don't do that well in generally. When we already saw it, the Forest game, it's got echoes of that for me. What do you think, Jafo? Have you got hope?
I'm always hopeful. I'm always a positive person when it comes to anything. But you know what you're going to get with Sean Dyche. It's a side who are going to be well organised, well drilled, and now he's been there. He's been at Everton long enough to get his own players in, get his own style, his own system. He's got rid of the players who he didn't really need. Like Anthony Gordon, he didn't need a player like that. He has the system set up. He has the blueprint of what he did well at Burnley. So why change it? You know, it's going to be a difficult game. It's going to be a really, really difficult game. And the thing is, it's a Molineux. Molineux's a bit of a fortress. Maybe we'll come through it. I hope so. I really do. The way that we've been playing and the way that the system has been now set up, I can't see why not. I can see us getting something out of the game. Definitely a point. Yeah. Why not all 3? Why not change the book? History has to change. It has to start somewhere. Why not start now?
Yeah, I mean, if we can win in London, then we can win anywhere. But obviously, this game is the England job rehearsal dinner. As still with as pointed out there, which you wouldn't put it past him. And now old fraud has been caught out in the northeast, isn't he? But yeah, I mean, being serious though, he is. Oh, some breaking news. Sacha Klose is very open to joining Eintracht Frankfurt on a 6-month loan. Wants to play regular football. That's from, I presume Dan's put that in the group. So there's one more club wants him as well. We'll see. But his time looks numbered, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, Everton. But you look at, again, that performance tonight. If we beat Everton, top half, would anyone in their world, I mean, I had the bet, obviously. Would anyone in their wildest dreams thought that we'd end this year in the top half of the table? Are we getting too carried away? Because this league has got a lot of shit in it, and we don't seem to be one of them now.
Yeah, I think we are better than the dross below us, and I think the dross below us are maybe worse than I thought they were going to be. I was thinking we were going to get 38 points. I was happy with a point per game. Would have kept us up, maybe gotten 15th, and we could have just wrote this season off. But where we are now, the philosophy that I genuinely would also written off Gary O'Neill. So the humble pie has been well and truly eaten. Some pride's been swallowed there because I think game by game, even when we've not performed, he's sort of definitely changing the team as we've talked about. There's no reason why we can't push on to be comfortable mid-table, if not in that top 10. Because let's not talk about VAR, but obviously we're a few points short of where we should be as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah, we're not talking about that thing anymore. No. Vetoed. I'm not mentioning it on this show ever again. There's no point. Follow the Gary O'Neill way, and it has to be mentioned. And we have kind of not talked about it enough. He's only been a manager for a year, like 1 whole year. When you look at some of the other appointments, and you think, well, look at Heckingbottom and the mess that he left Sheffield United in. I know when I said earlier this season, there's 19 better managers in the league than him. It's all about humble pie. I mean, we've washed ourselves with it and gorged on all sorts by now, because to be getting the performances and results that he's getting, not only Bournemouth last year, but for this squad that's not even his, none of the players are his, to improve players that he has done. and to be in with a share of the top half is superb for me. And even if Everton beat us on the Saturday, which is obviously going to be mixed emotions for me, if they do, it's been a brilliant year. And you end the year in and around mid-table when 90% of the media have written us off as relegation candidates. So yeah, I don't think you can say better than that, can you, Jafar?
No, and say when we talked about it, we had the gongonometer and there was all that, a bit of a laugh and a joke about that sort of stuff. Like we said at the time, even though we felt that maybe it was time and it was the wrong appointment at the time, we also had thing that he was letting.
Yeah,
it's this football club on the eve of brand new season was one of the worst things anyone's ever done to this football club. That's up there. It's going to be three probably of all time worst things to do to a football club. So to do where he is now and to be doing what he's doing, well done, Gary, because he deserves all the plaudits. And we've said it now. The coaching's good. The way that everything's been set up, he's a leader. He don't take no bullshit. He suffers no fools. All these things have been said today, and that's what he is as a manager, and that is Gary O'Neill in a soundbite, really, because he's what we needed. We needed something fresh. We needed a new approach. We needed somebody who's going to take us forward and lead us away from mediocrity, and that's where we were going. We were going back to mediocrity. We look like a fresh, new, exciting team in this league. So good job. Keep it up. Let's keep going. Hopefully we can get top half. I'd still be happy 10 to 12, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, is it... I know this is a mental thing to say, but kind of you get where I'm coming from. When you look at appointments over the last 10 years, when Kenny Jackett was appointed after the shit that we'd gone through for the 2 years before that, and the stability and what he managed to do with that squad, it's not a dissimilar job, really, for what Gary O'Neill's already done. And I think absolutely fair play to him for coming out and saying that about himself in that Sky interview last night, where he said he wouldn't have been inspired by himself being the manager as well of his club, which at least he's not up himself. He's not arrogant. He knows what he is and he knows where he's coming from. And the fact that to go from that Ipswich night where everyone was on his back, everyone, to the Monday Night Football thing and then that performance and result last night, I don't think anyone's seen a turnaround like that. Not at Wolves, anyway.
No, I have been over the last few months racking my brains, thinking back to the mid-90s and everyone since. We've had some managers that have had awful starts and remained awful. Colin Lee, Mark McGee, you name it. We've had managers that have come in, started badly and carried on being bad. But I think you can tell that the players took time to buy into him, and they are now. And I don't think that's a bad thing either, because I think it's been well earned, rather than sort of a big name coming in like Lopetegui with his rockstar reputation. It's been earned, which is what Bruno couldn't do. Right, Bruno came in with all of his ideas, and the players didn't buy in, and we had to appoint a Conte Lopetegui type manager to get us out of a hole. And now we seem to have a philosophy and a manager with a philosophy that's getting the buy-in from the players. And you see that in the interviews. I mean, they're all behind him, and they don't need to be. They could easily throw him under the bus. They could easily throw the towel in, like a lot of Man United players have been accused of doing this season. But not one of them has. And any that have, he's got rid of, or he's getting rid of.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, there's a comment here in the... You have to ask, is Bournemouth wondering about their leadership decisions after seeing what O'Neill is doing here? I think Bournemouth at the start of the season were probably doing that, but in a similar way. Iriola's probably a better fit for them than Gary O'Neill was, but he wouldn't have been a better fit for us than Gary O'Neill is. I think if we'd appointed someone like that, he would have gone completely tits up. Like Jafar said, he's the right man at the right time, and both clubs have benefited from him. So there we are. Saying nice things about Bournemouth is obviously not weird, but there we are. If we quickly have a look at the league table there, I mean, if we come out of them 3 games, this week with 9 points. I mean, it's dreamland. We've already said, where can we be? I mean, the 10-point buffer to the bottom three. No one's thinking about relegation now, are they? If they even were at all. So we'll go predictions. The part everyone loves to do. The look on your face said you can go first. Wolves v Everton.
I'm going to say 2-0 Wolves.
Excellent. Jafo?
I'm going to go scrappy 2-1.
I'd take that. I'd take that. I'll take that all day long. I mean, I had 2-0 in my head as well. Funny enough, yeah. I think the fact that we've got this far into it and that we're confident of an Everton win, despite knowing who it is and what it's about, pretty impressive, really. But yeah. So I was going to say we'll be back later in the week, but we're not. We'll be back next year. That's why we're doing this now. So we've smashed Brentford. We beat Chelsea. Everton next. Thanks to Audi. I should have said that at the start, but there we are. Thanks to Audi and the Boston Coffee Company for your continued support, and all of you lot for listening to this madness for the entire year, or watching, which is even more mental, really, if you want to watch us on YouTube. It still amazes me. I mean, I haven't been spotted for a long time, but Ed, when you get it when it happens to you, you know that you've made it.
Well, I had my own moment when I met Matt from not only this podcast but obviously cage fighting on the way back from the match, and I was like, "That's Matt from the Fancast."
Jafo was like that with me though. He didn't even speak.
But then I was white soul. Leave me alone.
Well, I was like that with Dave back yonder as well. So we're all starstruck. But if you want to talk to us, We're all normal, sensible people. And New Year's Eve is obviously a pain in the arse. If anyone wants to talk to us, like Matt always says, DMs are always open. You know where we are. But for tonight and for this year, we'll see you in 2024. So for me, goodbye, Ed.
See you later, guys.
And Jafo from South Carolina.
See y'all.
What? No, we're not going on. We're not going at 2023 on some kind of
American nonsense.
Transatlantic black country. Do it.
See you later, Bab.
Yeah, see you later, me babbies. Come on.
Ta-ra.